Hey YouTube, it's Pastor Dwayne here. Today we are going to be talking about the Byzantine text or the Byzantine text. Yes, I have a cold or something. Okay, so my voice sounds a little different. You're just gonna have to get over that. but but I wanted to talk specifically about this question. If you've seen the thumbnail and read the title, the question is the Byzantine text, right? This is the majority text, but is the Byzantine text, is it a critical text? And so the question here is what we mean by critical text when we say critical text, because it's worth pointing out that people who say critical text often mean different things. And the reason why I want to talk about this today is because of a Facebook post by my friend, okay, Heaven Jones. By the way, it's Heaven. I used to call him Heffen. It sounds so close to the word heifer, like the red heifer. But he corrected me on that, so it's Heaven Jones. And so he's been on the channel before. I interact with him all the time. He's a critical text guy. He kind of keeps me on the straight and narrow. If I say something wrong, he holds me accountable to it. We'll just say that. So we have a disagreement on a few things, but our agreement on many other things is worth noting. So anyway, he made this post on Facebook, and I snipped it out. And so I want to kind of go through it and talk a little bit about the issues that he's raising here. So hello to everyone in the chat. I know there's a couple people watching here, and we have a friendly neighborhood Jesus freak in there waving, giving a wave. I'm giving a wave back. So here we go. All right, so Heaven says, the truth is we are all critical text guys except for a theoretical group that doesn't exist. So we're all critical text guys. If you hold to the TR, then you are holding to a critical text constructed mainly in the 16th century, primarily based on the work of Erasmus, Stephanus, father and son, and Beza. Excuse me. If you hold to the Biz, then you are holding to a critical text constructed on the basis mainly of work done by von Soden and his workers, then carefully worked over by Robertson Pierpont. Robertson, I think he corrected himself in the comments there, Robinson Pierpont. It involves collation, evaluation of manuscripts individually and in groups, selection of a major family of manuscripts, the KX group, and the determination of the text where variants within KX occur. Okay, that's if you're not in the text critical world, you don't know what that means. We'll go through that real quick. Similar things can be said of W. Pickering's F35 text. Simply substitute KR for KX. Now, see, at this point, right, what we need to do is we need to come up here and circle Robertson, and we need to make fun of Heaven for getting basic details wrong. I know that it's a typo, but convention is we have to, that this just destroyed his whole argument because he spelt that wrong. Heaven, I'm just playing. I love you, brother. All right. If you use any of the many critical texts, Tregellis, Tyndale, Westcott, Hort, Nestle, NA, UBS, SBL, GNT Holmes, ECM, Alan Bunnings, SR GNT, Wayne Mitchell's GNT. There's a lot of GNTs. I never realized there's a lot. There's well, maybe I did realize, but there's a lot of Greek New Testaments. And even one derived from Snap's equitable eclecticism. Partially, right? I think he's got Matthew and Mark done. Then you are following a critical text, even if it may not be the so-called modern critical text. Now, what's interesting here, he uses the term critical text in a way that we might use it in a more popular sense. But yet he's arguing at the top that the critical text should be taken in a more technical sense. Of course, I don't think that he's necessarily, trying to poke at anyone specifically. But anyway, can anybody hear, or is it my computer? I got audio here. Shamgar Mind. It must be your computer then. But you can't hear me. All right. So if you use... Let's go down to this paragraph here. The only non-critical text would be a strict majority text. This is a theoretical hypothetical text at the moment because the work necessary to do it has not been done. And this is technically true. we'll get to that. The only text that comes somewhat close to this hypothetical democratic mathematical ideal is the Hodges-Farstad text. But not only does its database have limitations, von Soden, but in two major extensive places, they depart from a simple mathematical schema and head off to making text critical evaluations. And of course, he's talking about the story of the woman caught in adultery and the book of Revelation, because those are two very unique cases in the, excuse me, very unique cases in text criticism generally. The story of the woman caught in adultery is unique because of the different streams it has. The 7 streams of the woman caught in adultery had been identified, with 3 of them kind of being overarching ones. And those kind of match up with the 3 major majority text editions, right? I think it's Wilbur Pickering's F35 text tends to go with M7, right? That's one of the streams of the woman caught in adultery. This one goes with M6, I believe. And then the Robinson-Pierpont text goes with M5, or maybe I got M5 and M6 mixed up. I can't remember off the top of my head here. But yeah, it's unique also because it's been fully collated of the many passages of in the Bible, in the New Testament. The woman caught in adultery is fully and completely collated. We're just waiting for Dr. Robinson to get going with the publishing. Come on, we need to see that. We need to see all the data. We want to see it all. And then of course Revelation, a whole other beast. I'm currently looking at a few things in Revelation. I'm getting some of my time back. It's been really busy around here, but Revelation has had a very checkered past as far as its reception into the canon. It was split out into 7 additional epistles right off the start, right? John to the 7 churches which are in Asia, and of course that got sent out immediately. And a bunch of challenges with that. So the thing about the book of Revelation is the book of Revelation does not have a specific, it's not a majority. Like there are many places where there's no majority, plurality, right? Maybe lots of splits in Revelation. So you can't just neatly and tidily get a majority out of that. But anyway, continuing on, he goes on to say, no one has seriously proposed a manuscript that could function as the best manuscript, requiring no or next to no correction. All right, so this is the heart of the matter. This is really what's going on here, and I think Heaven is right in pointing this out. So as much as we're going to poke fun at him, he gets it. I think generally speaking, he's right here, and it all centers around what we mean by critical text. What do we mean by critical text? Now, there are 2 ways, excuse me, in which we are using the term critical text, right? The first way is the popular way, and I'm not advocating we get rid of this popular way of saying it, because we need a way to identify the different streams of Greek New Testaments that are now proliferating. So when we say critical text, many King James Version onlyists use it in this way. I'm a Byzantine priorist myself, and I typically use the word critical. I'll use critical text in both ways, but typically I'll use it in the popular way, mostly because I also speak to a popular audience. So I'm back and I can hear. Oh, perfect. So the popular definition of critical text refers to the modern critical editions. So anything that is based off of Westcott and Hort theory, Tregelles is, that's a little anachronistic. He came beforehand. But nonetheless, he falls under the same stream of thinking. So there is this whole idea, right, developed by Westcott and Hort, and has evolved over a period of time and produced a number of Greek New Testaments based on those theories. So you got Tregelles, you've got the Nestle Aland text, the UBS text, the SBL text even would fall under this critical editions. And of course, everybody knows, right, the Nestle Aland, we're coming up to the 29th edition. But the Nestle Aland is no longer going to be able to fall under this critical text definitions. But again, we will probably continue to use critical text because it's the next kind of evolution of this Westcott and Hort theory. Although by the time you get to the end of it, it changes I wouldn't say significantly, but the principles and the methodologies change. So yeah, in that sense, we would cut that off and we would make a distinction between those coming out of academia now and then the Textus Receptus. So we often say critical text to differentiate the work from academia. And again, technically the Textus Receptus was a work of academia as well. I get it, I understand that. But the work of modern academia, the modern texts, right? We differentiate those from the Textus Receptus. And so we would refer to the Textus Receptus just as simply that. So often presented as antithetical to the critical edition. So you've got the critical editions over here, right? We've got our UBS, our Nestle Aland, and we've got our majority text. And I have a Textus Receptus somewhere down here. Now, as much as our TR friends, some of them, not all of them, some of them, will refer to the TR as a majority text, they can't refer to it as a majority text anymore because majority text is here. So now to touch on some of the issues that Heaven brings up in his post, remember he says the only non-critical text would be a strict majority text. And then he goes to say that this is theoretical, hypothetical at the moment because the work necessary to do it has not been done. And this is true. This is true because in order for it to be a true majority text, or at least a certain majority text, you have to collate every Greek manuscript out there and then produce the works. And we haven't done that. It hasn't been done yet. In fact, I don't think everything has been fully indexed even. We could go to the INTF site and check, but it has, but it's not done. So when we talk about the majority text, I think Heaven is right in pointing out that it is technically right, a theoretical thing. It's a hypothetical text based on the work of von Soden. The RP text, which is where I hang my hat, right, based on the Uncial manuscripts mostly, or not Uncial, the minuscule manuscripts mostly, right? I mean, there is some Uncial support in there for sure. But again, all of the manuscripts hadn't been collated yet, and that has often been a kickback to the Byzantine priority position. But I think there's a resolution to that though, because what happens is if you can collect a sample size big enough, you can generally get what the reading will actually be. So even though there might be 5,000 manuscripts, if you can get 300 and count them, that would be a pretty good indication. We do have a little bit of evidence of this being the case too. There's a textual variant in, I can't remember where it is. It talks about the fear of God or the fear of Christ. I think it's Ephesians 5. And so the von Soden had come up with a number. I forget what the number was. I should have wrote this down in my notes here. But von Soden had come up with a number, and I think it was like 9 out of 13 or something like that. And so one of the guys on our Byzantine Text team, we're putting together 2026, actually went out and did a full collation and found out that he was like bang on. Like von Soden was right on. So there is something to be said. There is something to be said about having enough to make a statistical call. And so I know that's one example, and there's many, but that can be the case. But anyway, coming back to this question about a critical text, that the popular way of using the term critical text is just simply to take all the work of modern academia and lump it all together and call it a critical text. The second definition, and this is where Heaven is getting where he's getting on this, is he's playing the second the technical shouldn't call it the second. The technical definition of a critical text is just simply a text in which you make critical decisions, right? You compare a couple things and you make a decision, and there you go. It's a critical decision. So basically what he's saying here is any text in which you have to make a decision between one reading or another, that's a critical text. And that is the technical definition of critical text in textual criticism. So when you put it that way, every single printed edition of the Greek New Testament is a critical text. It is a critical text. So, for example, in the majority text, or not the majority text, that's a bad example. In the Byzantine text, there are a number of places where the Byzantine text is split, and so a decision needs to be made. I don't know if you're on the NT Textual Criticism Facebook page, you'll see that I posted some differences between the various editions of the Byzantine text form. So decisions were made. Sometimes they're easy decisions and sometimes they're different decisions. But nonetheless, the Byzantine text, decisions have to be made on a number of readings, and therefore it's a critical text. And he points this out and basically says the same thing is true of F35, Dr. Wilbur Pickering's work, of all the editions of the Textus Receptus, because there had been decisions made in every single one of those. So it does fit the the technical definition of the critical text. So this works out if you're speaking to if you're speaking to a non-popular audience, and they know what you're talking about when you say critical text, that's something. But when you're speaking to a popular audience, right, critical text means something else. Now, again, I don't want to necessarily say stop using critical text in the popular way. Do it. I think that's fine for now. But here's the issue, right? Is now with the proliferation of all these Greek New Testaments, there's got to be a better way to categorize them. And so I've did a little thinking on that. Excuse me. And before we do any more work with that, let's come over to the comments. I see some stuff going on over there back and forth. And then we'll take a look at some ways to categorize these. All right, so we've got Timothy Decker in here. Hey, Timothy, I hope things are going well. I'm it's good to see that you're recovering. I'm glad things are going well in that arena. So good. All right, so we had some sound issues. Mr. Moreno says, except for Codex Bezae, of course, that's right. Codex Bezae is not a critical text. If you want to take Codex, well, maybe it is. I don't know. Whoever wrote it, maybe they made decisions. Maybe they made critical decisions. But if we were to take Codex Bezae today and not make any changes to it, then that wouldn't really be a critical text. That would just be Codex Bezae. All right. I'm back and I can hear. Oh, good. You always have your textual cranks, myself included. That's right. RCT versus MCT, Reformation critical text versus modern critical text. Interesting. To use a familiar term, since I don't consider them accurate, the TR is a Byzantine Old Text with Western influence. Yes. Invasion of the Byzantoids. LOL. My hypothetical text would also be a Byzantine Old Text with Western influence as such. It would have a close semblance to the TR. Would you put the comma in there? I'm just curious. I know Nick was talking about the comma earlier. I think he was Timothy. If you're still in here, I think he was talking about your article. Invasion of the Byzantoids, hypothetical text. Oh, there it is. I'd probably go with eclectic text as a distinction from Byzantine text. Now, I've thought about this. But eclectic text, I don't know if that really works. Because you still have to talk about a level of eclecticism, right? So, for example, a Sturzian approach, for example, would be eclectic based on geography, right? Because if it's in 2 out of 3 places or 2 out of 3 text types, it would be seen as the proper reading. So there's an eclectic approach there. Of course, it's different than the eclecticism of modern textual criticism, to use the phrase, you know what I'm talking about. And the eclectic approach used there, you could use modern eclecticism, but then technically the Byzantine text could fall, right? Because eclectic just simply means to choose, right? So the Byzantine text could technically be eclectic because it's choosing between various streams of K in some places, especially where KX divides, right? Eclecticism just doesn't really function. You could use something like traditional text, but now traditional text for the Textus Receptus, right? seems to be getting a little bit, I don't want to say getting a little bit marred, like fuzzy. But if you keep traditional text as the Textus Receptus, the Byzantine text as the Byzantine text, and then the majority text as the majority text, and then you could lump all the rest into critical text, you could do that, right? But again, that's coming down to the popular usage and then the mix up with the technical term. You could try modern eclecticism or modern eclectic text. But then it's changing again, right? It's changing again because technically the ECM is not really eclecticism anymore, a coherence-based genealogical method. It's not anymore. So the CBGM wants to find coherence, and I don't really understand how it works. There's this whole idea of pre-genealogical coherence, and then there's just genealogical coherence. I was reading a couple articles today just before I popped on here, and again, that CBGM stuff, it's way over my head. I don't entirely understand it. I should at some point get in there and see what it is, but I know that there's some back end computer stuff that happens, but as far as I know, it's still like a black box in what the computer is actually doing. So I'd be interested if there was any code to look over, even to see exactly how it's functioning. Would be interesting to see that. All right. I tend to be more disparaging Westcar NAUBS line of text, calling them the skeptical text. Yeah, you could say that, sure. That said, the epithet is more true the closer you get to Westcott and Hort. Yep. Where are we here? What textual criticism book should a new student read? That's a good question. I should do a video and just like lay out some of the. It's hard to say because I started weird. I just started reading anything and everything. Books that I found helpful on the topic would be the prefaces based. That's a good place to start. Start with the prefaces to the Greek New Testaments. Start with the preface to the Byzantine Text. Start with the preface to the Tyndale House Greek New Testament. They came out with a book. I forget what it's called. I think it's like, what was it called? It was an excellent read. Harry Sturt's The Byzantine Text and New Testament Textual Criticism is another really good book. Myth and Mistakes, of course, Peter Gurry and Elijah Hickson. I read a couple from, what's his name? Dan Wallace, and some of his responses to Bart Ehrman. There's a book where there's a number of, it's not called Misquoting Jesus. I think that was the book by Ehrman. And anyway, I'll have to put together a list and make a video because you're not the only one who has asked that. But there's a couple suggestions for you. Get online and just read anything. Just read it all. Excuse me. Mr. Moreno says, where are we here? I do think the Patriarchal Text has an edge over the Byzantine TR. That's too funny. What textual criticism? Yeah, we already did that. The Patriarchal Text is, I think, a better example of what the TR was trying to do. No, wouldn't include the comma. I think there's too much evidence against its originating in Greek. Timothy Decker's giving me a smiley face, a sweating face. Sal C777, how's it going? Good to see you. Is there any example in the entire Bible where someone talks about textual variants? No, I can't think of any off the top of my head. That's actually a really interesting question. You do have references to the canon, I think, in the New Testament books. For example, you've got Peter Peter putting the writings of Paul on the same level as the Gospels, or in the same level as the Old Testament. You've got Paul saying things like, "I give you the command of the Lord," and things of that nature. Like there's actually some interesting passages in regards to linking up certain books of the Bible to canon and how it's represented, but I can't think of any examples in the Bible where they're actually talking about textual variants. You could take a look at some of the quotes from the New Testament, and they're slightly different from their Old Testament quotation. But again, they're not specifically talking about any variants in there. I know some have suggested that these are quotes from the Septuagint. Again, I haven't really dived into it enough to say that. I know that some people say it's not, and then some people say it is, but I'm going to leave that for now. Mr. Moreno says, never mind, I want a Bible with all the words of Acts 15:34, but it seemed good unto Silas to remain there, and Judas alone departed to Jerusalem. I did a video on that one, and I remember my conclusion was that to leave it in there. That variant is mostly supported by Bizet, by the way. Really? That's interesting. That's interesting. All right. All right. I think what I do is non-eccentric, longer readings would go mainline. Eccentric ones with marginalia. Yes, David Black's book. Yes, definitely. There must have been variants in the ancient scrolls. No. Well, so when you start talking about ancient scrolls, that makes me go back to Hebrew. And I know for sure that there was a system of writing in Hebrew, the Kere Ketev readings, in which, the Jewish scribes who were copying the books of the Old Testament couldn't fathom the idea of changing a word even when they knew that the one in the text was wrong. So instead, they would just copy what was in front of them, and then in the bottom of the page, they would write a note there to say, this is what's to be read. I know that's been a practice, I think, coming from the Masoretes. But again, I'm not up to speed on some of these Old Testament issues. Miss Moreno says the Judas departed alone part is supported by Bizet. It's not in the TR. Interesting. And then a soldier for Christ, pastor, as of right now, I don't have a solidified denomination, in which I fully agree with. How should I navigate choosing a church? I lean non-denominational. Find a church that preaches the Bible. They're going to say things you disagree with. You just got to get over that, right? You've got to set a line for which doctrines are like it, right? You got to what's the central theme of Christianity, and then recognize where the side issues are, whether it be eschatology or whether it be soteriology, if Calvinism or Arminianism bothers you, or if you've got to figure out what it is that is central. And then you want to ask the question, do they preach from the Bible? Does the church bear fruit? Is it a living church, right? Is there a good community there? Are people do they love each other? Is Christ the center? I'm not saying that theology isn't important. It absolutely is. But if you're looking for a church in which you're going to agree with everything, hook, line, sinker, if you're it's just not going to happen. What you got to do is you got to go in and you got to get involved, and you've got to be a part. Make sure the church is preaching the Bible. Make sure the pastor, the leaders of the church, that they're the types of leaders the Bible calls them to be, right? Knowing, again, that nobody is perfect. So you got to have a little bit of grace there. That's a super quick answer off the top of my head here. But yeah, you've got to get involved, and you can't let every little denominational thing or every little doctrine bother you. Because I don't think I've met a Christian, even in my own life, in person, that we agree on completely and 100%. So you got to learn how to disagree. Excuse me. Now, of course, if somebody comes in there and they're, touting some ancient modalist heresy or turning into a Jehovah Witness or something, you know what I mean? When something's wild, something's wild. Okay. I'm a continuationist. So I could not go to let me rephrase that. I could go to a non-continuationist church, but I think I would struggle after a period of time. Those are some of the things that are important to me personally. Of course, that's why I'm a pastor of a Pentecostal church. All right. So Mr. Moreno, hello, brother. I've respected your comments. Oh, there you go. Thanks, Pastor. That's a great response. All right. So I don't know where to go next. This will be a shorter live stream just because I'm not really feeling too well. But I did want to address Heaven's comment here. I was kind of hoping he'd pop in there so we could get a bit of back and forth. but he did not. But that's okay. Friday night is kind of a weird night. For me, anyway, for me. But I wanted to also just kind of give a little bit of, not credence, what's the term? Just a little bit of recognition for Vodie Baucham. You know what? I'm just going to go over here. I was shocked. Was that yesterday? I just got back from a part-time job. I got a part-time job now. So things are getting very expensive up here in Canada. But anyway, so I got back and hadn't been online all day, and I popped in there to see Vodie Baucham had passed away. And it was shocking. It was shocking. Now, I'm not a Calvinist. I'm not Reformed. But it's just awful. It hit me for sure. Because I've been blessed by Vodie's ministry and some of his preaching, some of the things that he said. So my heart goes out to the family, to his wife and his children. Awful thing to live through. You know, Charlie Kirk a few weeks ago, and now Vodie, and even John MacArthur. Right, we're starting to kind of get into this mindset where the old guard, right, they're starting to move on into glory. And then it'll be the younger folks to kind of come up and replace. I think Matthew Everhard did a video on that recently. But yeah, I just want to send out my condolences. And even though, you know, I'm not Reformed and we don't share the same sort of things all the time, you know, I think he's still a brother, right? He's still a brother, and precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of his saints. So pray for his family. All right. Timothy Decker says, I'll represent heaven. I agreed with him. Yeah, and I think, so coming back to heaven's statement, generally speaking, I agree as well. I think generally it's good. I think he's right. There is a technical definition in which it's used. That's just the way a critical text, right? That's just the way the critical means. And so by the definition, every TR edition has some form of text critical work done to it. And I really don't have an issue with suggesting that's the case. And I don't even have an issue with suggesting that the Byzantine text, that's the case. What most people don't realize when we talk about the Byzantine text is that the Byzantine text isn't just like, you know, all of a sudden we have, you know, 5,000 manuscripts that match really good and they're all like 100% equal, and so we've got the Byzantine text. No, that's not how it works, right? The Byzantine text is actually divided into a number of subcategories. We've got the two most prominent categories of the Byzantine text are KX and KR. So K is the siglum that's been given to this mass of manuscripts that mostly agree with each other. And that was given by von Soden in his work. So von Soden was insane. He like good insane, right? He collated so many manuscripts and done a tremendous amount of work. And I know some people are arguing about some of his accuracy, and perhaps there's a point there for sure. But he was able to group hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of manuscripts together. So he came up with a couple groupings. There's KR or KX, which has the most manuscripts amongst any kind of grouping, right? And then there's KR, which has the second most. So KR, the R means revised. For those who aren't aware, KR actually is what Dr. Wilbur Pickering based his text off of. So the Greek New Testament according to Family 35. Of course, Dr. Pickering didn't like the idea of calling it a revised text, and so he changed it to Family 35. So the 35 in Family 35 is actually GA 35. It's a specific manuscript that is closest to the Family 35 archetype, right? So if you do all the comparison of all the Family 35 manuscripts or the KR manuscripts, you will come up with something like a critical, right? There's the technical term, right? A critical text which outlays, which produces basically what Family 35 would have looked like if it were in a single manuscript. Of course, it's a reconstruction, and when we say reconstruction, that's your automatically, you know, technical definition of critical text. But KR, interestingly enough, there is a paper that suggests that the origin of KR actually happened sometime in the 13th century. And based on a lineage of scribes and writings in marginalia, this is an article written by Paplov. I think he was able to successfully show that family 35 actually had a start by a specific scribe in the 13th century. So interesting. Now, of course, Dr. Pickering would not agree with that because he thinks family 35 is original. But it's a very controlled, very, what's the term? Very controlled, very coherent group of manuscripts, whereas KX has a little bit of a wider scope, but it also has more manuscripts in it. And so the Byzantine Textform put out by Robinson Pierpont tend to go with KX. Now, why is the X there? I don't know. Maybe because it's the top group. I'm not entirely sure. I'd have to look at Von Soden again and see if he reasoned why he put an X there. But nonetheless, anyway, so let's. I think that's pretty much where I'm gonna end today. Again, it's been pretty busy week. I wanted to get this out on Wednesday, but I was just so bagged by the end of the night. I've taken on a part-time job. I'm driving a school bus. And so we were in training for the last couple weeks. So I ended up like training full-time for 2 weeks, and I still had the duties at the church. So things were a little crazy. So now that the training is done, I only work like 4 or 5 hours a day for that. And so my church duties and YouTube stuff can continue to happen. So that's what's been going on. That's why I haven't been on for a little while. But things are getting back to normal. In fact, what I was thinking about trying to do is instead of doing live streams all the time, like I still want to do live streams because it's fun to interact with everyone. I may get back into doing some of the shorter edited videos that I did before. So it would be nice to kind of do a little history on each of the printed editions of the Greek New Testament. And then, of course, that dream that I have, getting that Mark 16, 9 through 20 documentary done. I'd like to start working on that. We do have the Byzantine conference is still in the works. It looks like it's going to be March 6th to 7th. I think that was the date on there. We're just waiting for some. I'm just waiting for some confirmation, and then we'll share those details. But I think that's what it is, March 6th and 7th. So we'll be there. And then our Byzantine Text 2026 edition. It is still ongoing. We're working on it. I'm the one holding it up now. I've got to get the preface looked at, so that's what I'm doing here. We need to change some of the wording on it. There's some changes that are made just in the last number of years and in how things are called, and a little bit of what's the term? Vocabulary changes and stuff like that. Recent discoveries and thoughts like that have got to get in there. So that's what I'll be working on next week when my schedule normalizes, and then hopefully, we'll have the Byzantine text completed within the first quarter of next year. That's the plan. So hoping that will happen. I don't want any more delays. No more delays. This has been a very long, ongoing project, but we're still on it. We haven't forgot about it. We're still working, so that's good. And one last thing. James Snap asked me to help him out here. Let me pop this up. He's taking a trip to Kenya. He's going to be teaching about God's word. He wants to train up some ministers there, teach them some of the importance of certain text critical work. And so if you want to support that, you can come to his GoFundMe page here. Again, he just asked me to do this. He's a friend of mine. He's going to do some solid work there. Drop a few bucks in there for him if you can. If you're thinking about giving to my channel, don't just throw it on his GoFundMe there. And I'm sure he'll appreciate that. Any extra left over says he's going to be giving the rest of it to, where did he say? I forget, but he's giving it to, where was it? Okay, he did mention a charity in there that he would be giving any extra, so he's not taking anything specifically for himself. So do that. Other than that, I'm going to log off for today because I'm tired, not feeling too great. I've got the man cold. I'm dying. I'm dying. So keep a lookout. I'll be on here probably next week with some more interesting stuff. All right. Well, brothers and sisters, thank you so much for popping on to